Dear audience, this is the first part of the overview of the human nutrition. Before the real topic, I'd like to give you some practical importance which is related to the Valentine days. Namely, it was given by the National Institute of Health that we have to keep Valentine's Day sweet and safe for those who had some food allergy. Roses are red. It's wise to be wary. Look out for allergens like peanuts and dairy. But I would add that the soybean may also part of this allergy. For example, if you carefully read food labels on candies and other treats, it can help to ensure a safe day for everyone, but it is not easy because most of the chocolates and cakes are infected, I would say, with another than chocolate material. This is only one example that you can see that corn syrup, condensed slim milk, soy lecithin, or whey, etc., etc. So I don't think that you have to be really very careful. But returning to our topic, the co-authors, I would say that are the apes because our common ancestors 6 million years ago had the same digestive system. But of course that the evolution and the development made changes. It is an idea that the apes are mostly vegetarians. This is mostly more or less true. But if you see this picture from the National Geographic, you can see that this poor piglet are eaten by our closest ancestors. This is the boss chimps and the two secretaries. So you can see that if they could, they eat meat, but this is altogether not more than 10% of their total food intake. But the human, the ancestor of the human, invented the fire, and the fire spared a lot of time. We could eat and digest better, and we used this free time for use of instrument, which is not uncommon in the apes, but absolutely common in the human. If we are over the pandemic and we can go to Vienna, please see the Naturhistorisches Museum, where you can see the reconstruction of Lucy and her husband. Lucy from Africa, from the today's Ethiopia, is an ancient woman 3.5 million years ago. And what was the food intake for Lucy? Fruits and leaves, but also the roots and bulbs and buds, insects, small mammals and birds, and eggs. To cover the energy requirement, the whole day was not other than search for food. Some some 100,000 years later, the hunter-gatherer occurred 2.5 million years before Christ, and the hunted animals offered a balanced mixture of amino acids, which was crucial in the development of the brain and the abilities. And in this way, this concentrated amino acid mixture got free the human from the obligation of continuous searching and gathering for food for 20 hours in a day. And the Homo erectus developed. Parallel to that, the fight and fly reaction developed. The stress reaction, which is also a top product of the evolution. In this way, during a fear stress, a massive release of stress hormones made possible to the depletion of energy stores and to run away or to hunt. The first phase is use of carbohydrates, and the second the use of the fats. This fight and fly reaction even today is present and sometimes is not actual in this very strong form and is a cause of a lot of civilization diseases. We have to jump some 1,000 years, and we arrive to 100,000 years before Christ, the spread of modern early human from Africa to Europe, Asia, and also to Australia and the North and South America. Our closest ancestors used to be the Neanderthaler, who practically instinct died out, but we carry the genes of the Neanderthalers in some person. How? Because the early modern human, the Cro-Magnon man, lived from 100,000 years ago up to 40,000 years ago, parallel to the Neanderthaler and Denisovian man, and it is proved that there was a mating crossing between the two. Returning a little bit back to Lucy, to once more calculate how the fat retention and mobilization developed and how it gave a evolutionary advantage, which was the basic of all these processes that we have seen before. Lucy, if there was an abundance of food, get fat, and had approximately 30 kilograms of fat tissue. 1 kilogram is equivalent to 25 megajoule. Only one remark, that 1 kilogram clean fat and oil is approximately 38-40 megajoule per kilogram energy value, brute energy value, or fuel value. But the fat tissue, of course, contains not only fat cells but also vessels and conjunctive tissue, etc. So, returning back, Lucy contained 30 multiplied by 25, 75 megajoule retained reserve energy in form of the fat. If we assume that the maintenance requirement of Lucy used to be 7 megajoule per day, because she was a little bit smaller than the today's modern human, this amount by mobilizing fat was enough for 3-4 months for surviving and for suckling by breastfeeding the babies. Of course, we have to suppose to find by Lucy some nuts, berries, and wild oats, but not a lot. We have to accelerate this overview with the agricultural and revolution and the domestication, more and more agricultural product and milk and meat was eaten. And up to the Middle Age, the picture did not change a lot. Fatty meat was very popular. Honey, salt, not too much because it was very, very expensive. White bread, and they used soup and porridge of cereals, or soup of beer and cereals, leguminous seeds, and only a little fruit. Fruit used to be a very expensive luxury product. Beer and very weak 2% alcoholic beer in form of a soup. They have eaten potato, cheese, slaughterhouse fat and products, and by the industrialization and the industrial revolution, they made from the byproduct of slaughterhouse fat margarine and cooking oil. Parallel to all these development, the alcohol consumption increased, and the new set and net of the foods like mac and the drink of Coke put the point on the I in the unhealthy foods. And this is how we can build up our main topics according to the Robert Sapolsky's excellent book of Junk Food Monkeys. This book is about some baboons in Africa before and after that a tourist center has been implemented there. Before, baboons lived very healthy, ate a lot of fruits and vegetables and roots and insects, and they moved the whole day long. After the implementation of the tourist center, they concentrated on the junk food, and they ate the residue of the sandwiches and cakes and etc., etc., and they did not moved a lot, and they received a lot of diseases. By this way, during some 10 years, the same civilization diseases occurred in the group of these baboons like in the civilized human, namely the obesity, the atherosclerosis, the tumor formation, cancer mainly, getting older. So they lived more, and their maturation also became earlier, so it's interesting. Osteoporosis, anemia in the females, high blood pressure, and alcohol consumption are the most important civilization diseases. So we have to start with the obesity, with this very complex social biological problem. This is according to the National Geographic, the fat has heavy costs and consequences. And everybody knows that it would be very good to have an ideal body composition, body mass index, with the ideal body fat percentage, but this is not the case concerning a lot of the population. And to measure the body healthy state, we can use some indexes. The Quetelet index or body mass index is the body weight in kilogram per body length in meter on the second. And here you can see an example for a person of 65 kilogram of body weight, 1.78 meter height, and having the body mass index of 20.5. To make an orientation, the so-called, it cannot told, but the so-called normal body mass index is between 18 and 25. Below 18, it's low, and above 25 is overweight, and above 28 is obese. We have simpler parameters too. For example, we have the normal weight means body length in centimeter minus 100. Okay. It was first introduced, these indexes, by the insurance companies to predict the lifespan of the clients. We have also this name, this Broca index used to be the for the previous. Okay, what is important? Broca index is body weight minus normal weight calculated in the previous. Okay, what are the influencing modifying factors? The fat cells of the males and females, and the fat cells of the red distribution of the fat cells types are different in the hip and the waist, and therefore the hip and the waist index may modify the body mass index evaluation, because it's a accumulation of the fat in the waist, like the male obesity. It is metabolically more dangerous than the hip. And also we can the basics of these different metabolism of the fat cells, they have different peroxisome proliferator activated receptors, alpha beta gamma receptors. The ideal body composition, now not the body weight, depend upon the total body fat, and the total body fat is different in the two sexes. Nothing to do with the gender question. It is biology, and we have two sexes. Total body fat can be calculated for the women by the first, and for the men by the second equation, using the body mass index and the height and the second. And if we see the previous numbers, a person with body mass index of 20.5 and a height of 1 meter 78 centimeter, in females it would be 13.8% of body fat, and in male 7.5. But even the female's value is not enough for a regular sexual cycle. If you calculate according to this equation, the women equation, we can calculate that the minimum fat percent 18 can be achieved only with a body mass index of 22.4 of body mass index. The absolute secure slimming diet would be in a jail. Please find and listen to Elvis Presley's jail song, but now we will see the details of the development of the obesity. We have the fat accumulation in the biology, the winter sleep, or the birds of migration accumulate fat as a energy store before using it, and after they use it up, they burnt it. Obesity is a pathological accumulation of the fat. Yes, but unfortunately, this is not only food related, it is also genetics related, because we have people who are similar to this Dinka tribe's fighter. They are very slim. They are so-called firemen, like Archimbolo's picture. They have a high thyroid activity. And also we have another type. These are the two extremes, the sumo fighter type, or Archimbolo's picture, the waterman. And with a low thyroid activity and high accumulation of the fat. As a opposite, we have a very bad picture, very tragical picture about the world fasting map, where you can see that the blue is a more or less fasting territory, and the deep blue, you can see some places in the middle of Africa and India, is a very deep poverty and fasting. To help a little bit, they developed during the research so-called women supplement. What is this women supplement? You can see the form and the measure. This is not more than a little bit more than 2 grams. And this woman supplement is proposed to take before conception or in early pregnancy to boost, to improve growth of the fetus, according to the National Institute of Health. This woman supplement consists of dried skimmed milk, soybean and peanut extract blended into a peanut butter-like consistency. Of course, that it contains a lot of vitamins and minerals. Fortified is the expression. If not, we have to see the consequences of the deep fasting, and this is the kwashiorkor syndrome, or protein energy malnutrition with vitamin B deficiency. You can see the ascites and the polyneuritis of this poor child, tragical. Okay, the opposite, the overview map of the obesity can be seen, and you see that the yellow is very obese and orange is obese. And the problem is widening with the industrialization, and more and more country is more and more developed. But first we have to exclude the pathological obesity, which has a genetic background of OB genes. It means that homozygous recessive no leptin production means that OB. In this case, a surgical operation, a bariatric operation is necessary, or to removing of the part of the duodenum. This picture shows us that the United States and the European consumption data are similar. Europe a little bit is following 10, 30 years of decalage the United States. So the problems are the same. Why is the obesity a problem? Obesity has not only a question of mood and beauty or not. No, this is a lot of pathological consequences. On this picture, you can see that we have problem with the joints and parenchymatic organs and vessels, etc., etc. Here you can see on a nuclear magnetic resonance picture that the fat tissue has different metabolic activity, the reddish and the bluish pictures. And here you can see the culprits, the adipocytes, which can produce the leptin. To the leptin we will just arrive, but first we have to see the so-called thermostat model of body fat percentage, how this thermostat or detector is working. We have a temperature setting, a set point. This is the genetically set body fat percent. This between 18 and 25 or more, and the heat may modify the thermostat. Thermostat can feel the heat, and this is a negative feedback for heating. If there is colder, electric heater made a correctional mechanism. We will apply this model for the fat accumulation or the fat mobilization, and the energy center in the hypothalamus. The energy sources are the fats and the sugars, but the brain cannot metabolize fatty acids, and therefore the receptors detect only the glucose level. As an opposite, the liver can metabolize both glucose and fatty acids, and the receptors detect levels of both nutrients, and they will send a signal to brain via the nervus vagus about the real situation. Okay, the thermostat, glucostat, and fat lipid start is in the hypothalamus. Here you see one neuron, but this one neuron in the hypothalamus is influenced by the following tissue hormones: the PYY, the leptin, and insulin from the periphery. You haven't heard, you have heard a little bit more about these tissue hormones. These tissue hormones are the most important in the energy homeostasis because this is not only sugar or fat. This is the body composition and energy homeostasis. And you can see on the bottom that the PYY, the leptin, the ghrelin, and the insulin are the most important influencing factors. The PYY is a peptide YY hormone produced by the enteroendocrine cells of the ileum and the colon. The Y stands for tyrosine because this is 2-tyrosine residue can be found, and this tissue hormone getting into the blood and into the hypothalamus can stop the food intake. In other way, this is orexinogenic, anti-orexinogenic. And you can see that the leptin, similar to that, produced by the adipose tissue, also will decrease the food intake. In the stomachal wall is produced the ghrelin, which will increase the feed intake, and directly or by another neurotransmitters. And we have also the pancreatic insulin, which will also influence the carbohydrate and the fat metabolism. But returning to the most important first step, which is the food intake, and the hunger and satiety, practically and a little bit simplified, depend upon the balance of the ghrelin and leptin. If the ghrelin is overwhelming, we feel hunger, and if the leptin is overwhelming, we feel satiety. And in some people, genetically, this does not work, and we as humans has another problems. The problem is the difference between the hunger and the appetite. The hunger is related to the ghrelin and leptin, but the appetite that we need a special feed, or the so-called the addiction to the sugar may override the satiety. And according to the cartoon, only rats have no conscience. I'm afraid that we human has also no conscience sometimes. Okay, the solution would be a very small portion size according to this small picture, which gives us a really very reduced feed intake. You can see, for example, that we have to eat steak like a card, and cheese like 3 pieces of domino, or pasta like a PC mouse, or potato like a light bulb, or butter, no more than dice. I don't know why is in the middle of the picture, but they also told that burrito equal to the soap. I will replace that in a European custom that it would be the bread. No, it's maybe the bread. Okay, so this is the reduced swimming diet. In numbers, from 10, 12 megajoule per day, we have to reduce to 5, 6. But later on, I will give you some other fasting systems, the 16 hours fasting, for example, but later on. What is the maintenance requirement which has been covered anyway? Uh, I also give you the dog and cat indoor-outdoor, but only to compare if you will study later on. The human maintenance requirement can be calculated by the basic metabolic rate and the PEL, the physical activity level. I give an example. The basic metabolic rate is live weight multiplied by a factor. The first factor every time relate to a man, and the second relate to a woman, because the equations are not the same and the maintenance requirement. Okay, factor multiply the live weight plus 2.9 or female 2.0 times the physical activity level. This is the last picture per 2 or per 2.4. I give you an example. A person of 65 kilogram of live weight with a physical activity level of 1.4, like secondary school or the university student, for example, or a clerk. And the first result is for males, 9.8, and the female 8.4 megajoule per 1 day. Be careful, for elderly, another equation should be used, different for man and different for woman, and you see that even lower are the activity for the male senior citizen 8 and 7.6 for the female senior citizen. If you are a sportler, you have to give extra energy need for horizontal and vertical movement, but be careful. Your body weight is okay, the length in kilometer, but the number are in kilojoule. So after you receive the number, you have to transform it in a megajoule by dividing by 1000. Okay, so you see here that now we will concentrate on the human, and the experimental animal only helped us to know about these hormones and regulation. And where you will see the calculated energy consumption of a person of 70 kilogram of live weight in megajoule and in hour. You can see this picture and you can calculate your energy consumption. Be careful, sitting 10 hours is only 3.1 megajoule. So this is very low. This is not a physical activity. It's tiring, but not physical activity. And you see here the how to calculate, how you can cover the 10-15 megajoule per person per day daily energy need. This is altogether maintenance and activity, and you see the most important food sources and drinks. But the most important is the decision. Without decision, no question. Every time you can see that some new phytochemicals are found which can help a little bit in a slimming diet or maintenance of the body temperature. For example, the brand new is the Korean pine nut oil, which work through gastrointestinal tissue hormones. Okay, but the best is to the physical activity to burn the fat. Okay, the goals and the means. The goals are healthy humans from the childhood up to the senior citizens, and the meals will be the food pyramid. So eat a lot of uh, whole corn breads. Eat a lot of vegetable and fruits. Eat less meat, but eat fish and nuts, and eat only a very small amount once a week, say, or in percentage very small chocolate and cakes, etc. I have to add that the today's very modern food pyramids add as a basic of all these food intake the daily physical activity. We arrive to the last slide. Thanks for your precious attention, and be careful with this amount of food.